Anyway, let's get started. I'm sorry that more people haven't showed up. I'm actually really disappointed because this is probably my favorite presentation is about nodes. And most people are like, node? Forget it. I don't want to run a node. But we're going to talk about nodes anyway, even if it's not a popular subject.
I want to know.
You want to know about nodes. So it's all about running a nodes, and you know who I am. And I've been running a node since core version 0.8. So a long time ago, I've been running a node. And a node is really it's the third leg of being a Bitcoiner. And we've already talked about securing your private keys with a hardware wallet. And we've talked about doing some mining if you want to mine. And so running your node is really the third part of being a completely sovereign, independent Bitcoiner without relying on anybody else for anything. And I really think it's the most important part of the network. So what is a node? A node is simply just a computer that is running the Bitcoin software. It's just running the program that is Bitcoin. It contains all of the rules of what Bitcoin is and what is a Bitcoin transaction and how Bitcoin operates, and everything about Bitcoin is contained in the Bitcoin software. So when you run the software, you are running a node. And this is open source software that anyone can download from the internet and install on a computer of your choice. And you don't need anyone's permission. All you need is an internet connection to download the program, double click on the program, and run the program. And it's all automatic and pretty easy to do. And every node in the network is an independent agent. They're autonomous, and you make your own decisions. No one tells you what software to run, what version of Bitcoin to run. And you don't have to run a node to use Bitcoin, which is the wonderful thing. But the node contains all of the rules and all of the directions about what makes Bitcoin Bitcoin. Everything you need to know about Bitcoin is contained inside of this program, basically everything, except for the transactions that get added to it. But even the transactions get stored on your node. The blocks get stored on your node. You could then connect to other nodes in this network, as the diagram shows. So that's why it's called a node, because it's one in a many of network. So you're connecting to nodes, nodes are connecting to nodes, and those nodes are connecting to other nodes, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so a node basically has three jobs. One is to establish what the rules are and enforce them. Two is to prepare transactions to go into the next block. And three is to keep a copy of all the past blocks that have been recorded in the blockchain. So just to review how Bitcoin works itself and how nodes fit into this is that we have a global ledger, a global accounting system of me sending Bitcoin to Donna, Donna sending Bitcoin to Milo, Milo sending Bitcoin to Terry, Terry sending Bitcoin, and on and on and on. It's just a record of all these transactions. And all these transactions are assembled roughly every 10 minutes and put into a block by a miner. The miner assembles the transactions and puts them into a block. The winning miner then propagates the block out to the network. Each of our nodes then check that block to make sure that every transaction fits the rules of the Bitcoin protocol, of the Bitcoin program. Does this transaction fit? Does this transaction fit? And that block, if all the nodes agree, then that block gets added to the end of the blockchain. And this happens every 10 minutes. We get a new block every 10 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. And this goes on indefinitely. And of course, the whole thing is secured through cryptography. That is really what makes it secure.
Are you recording?
I am, but you can ask a question.
No, I was just going to look back later.
Okay. So if any of the transactions in a block do not meet the rules of the Bitcoin program that you're running on your computer, that entire block will get rejected. And oftentimes there's 4,000 transactions in a block. If any one of those transactions do not meet the rules of Bitcoin, a person's node can reject it, or generally the consensus of nodes will reject that block, and it will not be added to the blockchain because it will not be added to that node's blockchain. And generally, when you're in consensus with the other nodes, you're running the same software and you're adding the same blocks to the end of the blockchain. And there are about 20,000 nodes in 157 countries that are running the Bitcoin software. These are the nodes that are maintaining the integrity of the network. And this is what gives it its decentralization property, because there is no central point of failure. There's no central point to attack. There's no central person to deplatform. There's no company to outlaw. Nothing. It's all distributed on our nodes. If you are running Bitcoin software, if you're running a node, you are the network. It is what it is. I would like more nodes, and that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this presentation, is the more nodes we have, the more decentralized the network gets. The less nodes you have, the more centralized it gets, and the more vulnerable it becomes to attack.
Is that 20,000 clear net though, or is it?
There's a debate. There's a debate about how many nodes there are, because this 20,000 is really the Tor nodes.
So it tries to include all of them. Okay.
And then if you really want to include all the ClearNet nodes, it's like 100,000.
Well, those count too, right?
Yeah.
So the more people like us in our mindset run nodes, the safer it is, and it's going to keep the corruption out, so other riffraff.
That's exactly right, because the only way we keep the rules of Bitcoin the way they are is if we run the software. And if we refuse to adopt new rules that break sound money principles. So we want to protect our money, and that's why we run a node ultimately.
And we can vote on these new rules that might be optional.
Yeah, exactly. And we're going to get to the debates at the end of the presentation about some of these rule changes
How
that
you vote.
So now we get to the point of Bitcoin's rules, because this is what nodes do. They enforce the rules of Bitcoin. They're like the policeman, right? You know, no, you shall not pass. Like Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, right? No, you shall not pass. Right? That's what nodes do. This transaction is valid. This transaction is not valid because it breaks one of the rules. So one of the rules that some of the rules that we value, of course, is no double spending. Donna can't double spend her Bitcoin. She can't send one Bitcoin to Amy and send the same Bitcoin to me. That's a violation of the rules, right? She would like to do that, but we prevent her from doing that through our nodes. Another rule that Amy just mentioned is the 21 million limit. There will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin in existence. If someone tries to create more than 21 million or tries to change that rule, all of our nodes will go, no, 21 million is the limit. So we enforce that rule. Another rule is the issuance schedule. Roughly every 10 minutes, a block gets created. Right? If someone says, no, I want to create more blocks, I want to create a block every minute, the nodes will go no. So what are some other rules that we know of in Bitcoin that are enforced by nodes? What are some other rules? Just
The size of the block.
size of the blocks have a limit. Exactly. It cannot be more than 1 megabyte under ordinary data circumstances. Yeah. Another rule is that we have a difficulty adjustment, a mining difficulty adjustment every 2016 blocks. That's when we adjust the difficulty for miners. And that's how we keep the schedule roughly at about every 10 minutes. It's difficulty. Those are a couple other rules. There are a lot of other rules, but those are some of the most popular ones that we know about. So one of the functions of running a node is that we prepare transactions. So when Donna wants to send her 1 Bitcoin to Amy, she broadcasts this transaction out into the network. All of the nodes hear her broadcast. I want to send 1 Bitcoin to Amy. Ooh, my node heard that. We're going to put her transaction in the memory pool, also called the mem pool. And every node has a memory pool of pending transactions. And these pending transactions get heard also by the nodes of the miners. The miners have a node as well. And the miners start assembling and preparing the new block if they happen to win the random number lottery to win the next block. And so we are preparing the next block. All of us are preparing. And of course, also when we prepare the next block, we also check to make sure that it follows certain rules. Again, we're the policeman. We're not going to prepare a block that has bad transactions. So we're going to get that out of the mempool. And also these transactions come with an offer to the miners. Like we have to offer the miners something. That's part of the protocol actually. You can't have a zero fee incentive for the miner to put your transaction in a block. You have to offer some satoshis, some amount of Bitcoin to the miner to get your transaction into a block. And in this picture here, we have a visual representation of a pending block from the mempool, from a common mempool. And so we see here the average offer is 1 sat per vbyte, or 1 Satoshi. The range of offers to the miners is 1 to 86.9 for a total of 0.25 Bitcoin fees to the miners. 3,272 transactions would go in the next block. This next block is estimated to be added to the blockchain in about 10 minutes.
So that's a sample of something you would see on your computer as you are creating and working this node.
This is something that you could see if you were running a node.
So when you're running the node, you have a wallet in there too? And you're taking your money from your wallet?
We are going to get there. We're going to get to wallets also. It does come with a node. Okay. But the second function of a node is to store all of the past blocks. We have a record of everything that has been transacted in the past. And we confirm them as well. So if this block passes our rules, we add it to our blockchain. And this just goes on forever. And so the image down here on the right is a visual representation of a most recent block that I captured a few days ago. This is block number 940559. The average fee was 1 Satoshi. The range of fees offered in each transaction was 1 to 100 Satoshis. Total fees to the miner for this block is 0.014 Bitcoin. It contained 4,493 transactions, and it occurred when I took this screenshot 14 minutes ago, and it was mined by a pool called Antpool. So we know the miner who mined it. Okay. And this block would then be added to my node in the blockchain, in my blockchain. Any questions on this?
So every node runs its own blockchain?
Every node has a copy of the blockchain, and the blockchain is common to everybody.
So there's only one blockchain?
There's only one version of the blockchain, but everyone has a copy of it.
Okay.
So it's a distributed database, in other words, a distributed ledger. And this blockchain contains all the transactions in the history of Bitcoin, going back to 2009. But it's a copy. If you're running in the consensus Bitcoin, you have the exact same blockchain as everyone else does.
So then the original blockchain, is that also being run with the node, or is it just existing independently?
The blockchain doesn't exist somewhere else. It exists on everyone's node, on everyone's computer.
Okay. So it's the same blockchain?
It's the same blockchain on everyone's computer.
Okay.
And that's what consensus is. That is the official version of the Bitcoin of truth. That is the truth of Bitcoin contained on everyone's computer. It doesn't differ at all. The blockchain is identical for everyone if you're running Bitcoin. If you say you want to change the rules of Bitcoin, then you'll then start creating a different blockchain. And that is, we're getting to, that's a hard fork. We'll get there.
Well, let me say something real quick.
Sure.
So if Satoshi and Hal Finney were the first ones to start running the blockchain on their computers, and they created, let's say, I don't know, let's just say 100 blocks. But by the time they created 100 blocks, 5 more people had also started to run nodes, and every time one of those 5 people began running nodes, they would have copied from the very beginning, from the Genesis block. And then an asteroid comes down and destroys Satoshi, and absolutely freakishly at the same time, in a completely different state, another asteroid comes down simultaneously and hits Hal Finney, and both of their computers are destroyed. The blockchain still lives on because there's already been copies of it. So it doesn't matter that they were the original blockchain, you know what I'm saying? As long as those other 5 nodes have what everybody has agreed to is the pure and unadulterated blockchain, it lives on.
Good point. Good point. And that's another benefit of decentralization. In order to destroy Bitcoin, you have to destroy every node in the world. Every node. As long as the Bitcoin blockchain exists on one computer, Bitcoin lives. You only need one computer, actually, for Bitcoin to live. The Bitcoin doesn't move. Even if electricity goes down, the internet goes down, nothing's happening to your Bitcoin because the Bitcoin lives on everyone's computer on the blockchain. That's where the Bitcoin lives. It lives on everyone's computer. All you have is the key to unlock that Bitcoin on everyone's computer. So who controls nodes? It's us. We're all individuals, control our nodes. A company can also run a node. The Chamber of Commerce here could run a node. But you are in complete control of your node, what your node does, what your node accepts, what it blocks. No one tells you what to do. You make the rules for your own node. Now, if you start to make rules that differ from other people's nodes, you're going to have a little bit of a conflict. So that's why it's generally good to run software that other people are running, unless you want to start a new version of the software. But the entire network is made up of these nodes making their decisions, generally in synchronistic fashion. They all have the same rules. They all have the same program running together. And that's what creates this powerful decentralized network. And if the miner tries to cheat and tries to give itself more Bitcoin than it deserves according to the rules of your node, they will be rejected. And so it keeps miners honest because, of course, miners are profit incentivized. They want to get as much Bitcoin as possible. But if they try to cheat, then they lose all of the work they just spent trying to win this one block. So if they spend, say, $50,000 in electricity to find the next block, they're going to be very sure that they're following all the rules that our nodes are enforcing, because otherwise they try to slip a fast one on us, all our nodes are going to go, they're going to be rejected, and then another miner is going to slip right in front of them, find the next block, and all of us are going to look at that miner's transactions, and they're all good. We're going to go, oh yeah, this is the guy, not that cheater. So miners are incentivized very highly through financial incentives to follow the rules of nodes. All right? You don't have to run a node to use Bitcoin, but then you're relying on someone else's node. So if you have a hardware wallet and you put Bitcoin in there, you're relying on someone else's node to verify that. If you're using an exchange and you buy Bitcoin from an exchange, well, you're trusting the node of that exchange that you have the Bitcoin. But when you download or when you bring your private keys off an exchange and put it into a wallet that's connected to a node, you know with 100% absolute certainty that that Bitcoin is legitimate, authentic, and it is yours. The node gives you this power to do this. So that's another reason why nodes are very powerful. You really don't rely on any third party whatsoever. So this gets to one of the great truisms of Bitcoin. We say, don't trust, verify. With a node, we are able to verify with 100% accuracy that Bitcoin that we have or are receiving is legitimate, authentic, and real. Right? And so we know this is true because the node itself is carrying the rules. It is carrying the laws of Bitcoin. And all we have to do to adjudicate the veracity or test the veracity of the Bitcoin is to run it through our node. And if the node says yes and registers it, it's good. And this is another reason why there's really just almost no fraud in Bitcoin, because it's so trivial to verify Bitcoin. When it's so trivial to verify Bitcoin, no one's going to try to cheat. On the other hand, gold is pretty easy to fake, right? You get some tungsten and you maybe spray a little gold paint on it, or maybe even you spray a little bit of gold leaf on it, and you can pass it off as a 100-ounce bar. And this happens a lot. Like the Chinese have been caught doing this for decades, cheating. And how do you verify if a gold bar or gold coin is accurate? You have to buy a machine that costs like $5,000. As opposed to running a node, which is free. All you need is a computer and a node to verify Bitcoin. So the incentive to cheat on Bitcoin is very, very low because the chances of you succeeding are unheard of. It's like practically zero if you're running a node. And anyone who has serious assets and serious money invested in Bitcoin is going to be running a node to verify for peace of mind, if nothing else. So by running a node, you become your own bank. You don't have to trust a financial institution. You don't have to trust the government. You don't have to trust your financial advisor that you actually got money where they say it is. And when you try to go get your money back, you don't have to say, pretty please, can I have my money back? No, you are in control. You're in control of all this stuff. Nodes make you a sovereign, free, and actually a more private and responsible individual over your wealth, over your time and energy that you've spent on this earth. Okay. Questions? Okay, that was my preaching. So every node does come with a wallet. And here's a picture actually of my wallet from a few days ago. The balance is currently 0 on the left. And on the right here, we have some of the recent transactions that I have sent and I've received. And actually, some of my mining rewards were received by this node. And that's why you see the pickaxe. Because this Bitcoin actually came directly from a fresh block. I'm the first person to touch this amount of Bitcoin that I received. So it's pretty cool. So when I mine, I also want to make sure that the mining pool is actually giving me real Bitcoin. They can't pull a fast one on me because I'm verifying this all. All right. And so with a wallet, it's just like any other. You can send Bitcoin, you can receive Bitcoin, you can connect hardware wallets to it, and then you can participate in the consensus rules of Bitcoin. This is how you vote, so to speak, by choosing the version of Bitcoin that you want to run. And I am running Bitcoin Knots, which is sort of an upstart version of the Bitcoin software. Another benefit of running a node is that you don't leak information out to websites, to wallet providers, or things like this. Sometimes when you use someone else's node, they can track your IP address. And they say, Terry was checking, what's going on the blockchain here. I wonder why Terry is checking, this transaction. Why is Terry looking at this? And maybe, it leaks information. It doesn't necessarily dox you, but running a node makes you more private.
And that's all stored somewhere for people to see, right?
Yeah, whenever you visit someone's website, your visit is logged. Not your name and your and your physical address, but your IP address, the type of computer, your operating system, the type of browser that you use, do you have JavaScript enabled, on and on. All this data is linked.
So it can be linked and followed up for nefarious activities.
And then they can say, Donna also did this Google search for something. And Donna also has a Facebook account, and they can start to build a real profile of you.
What are you doing?
Terry, sorry, Donna, Terry, all of them. They're doing it for all of us, not just Terry. So it also helps with privacy if you're concerned about leaking information out. So is anyone interested in running a Bitcoin node? All right.
I've kind of changed my original projection, when we first met, and so this is kind of building on me.
Good. So there are 3 ways to run a Bitcoin node. One is with a typical computer, as seen on the right. And then another is you can buy these little nodes in a box.
I have one of
Is
those.
that what you brought in?
I forgot to bring mine in. I had it my old Start 9 machine. I forgot to bring it in.
Mine's still plugged in. I don't like to unplug it.
I had my old one, my old
Okay.
dead one that was killed
Killed
by the spam. It was killed by the spam.
It didn't have enough storage.
It didn't have enough RAM.
Memory, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have enough RAM.
Oh,
So anyway, these things are like this one on the left is a Start 9, and it's about the size of a softball. Although it's not round, of course, it's rectangular,
Yeah,
cube,
mine's about like that.
rectangular.
yeah, but you brought cubes in before.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
Well,
those are
were-
miners I think I brought before.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not bring these nodes in a box.
Nodes in a box.
Nodes in a box.
Sounds so fun.
Yeah, but it does a lot more than nodes in a box. It's actually a personal server. You can do a whole lot of things with it besides just Bitcoin, but that's one of the things. And of course, we don't have like any real geeks or nerds here besides myself. So, or Amy too, I guess. You could build your own. So basically what you do is you just need any, computer. You need certain, you can't have an old laptop like this anymore, unfortunately. It's just not powerful enough. You need, certain memory and processor requirements. You need a good internet connection because you're going to be downloading, 900,000 blocks now. So you need a good internet connection. You also need to have a really good hard drive, a solid state hard drive, as opposed to the old spinny hard drives that would spin. The solid state ones that come in our phones, those are solid state hard drives, and they're much faster, and they can record the data faster. So if you have a good internet connection, a good computer, and a solid state drive, the initial block download from the original Genesis block in 2009, you could take just only a day or two to download the entire blockchain.
Day or two?
Just a day or two. Just a day or two. Now, if you don't have a good hard drive, it can take like 2 weeks.
So how do you know if the hard drive spins or not?
You just look it up in the properties of your computer and you see what type of hard drive it is. Yeah,
Spinning type of box.
I'm pretty sure you have a solid state drive. your computer is not that old. Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah, and that's basically it. And you gotta make sure you have like malware bytes and other firewalls kind of configured so that it doesn't block the software. But basically, it's really pretty easy. The biggest challenge is the patience. It could take a long time to download it, and the software will tell you like where you are, like actually what block you've downloaded, so you can see it. But people don't want to invest. You don't have to sit at the computer the whole time. You just let it go and do its thing. You just let it go. And make sure, you don't have like power saving things. Like at midnight, my computer automatically turns off. You got to make sure that's turned off so that it continues to run through the night, and it'll just run. Yeah. And so you just download the software. It's like 10 megabytes to download it, and then you just double click on it, you open up, you install the application. And then you just start downloading the blockchain. And if you even don't want to store all 700 and some gigabytes that it is right now, you can run what's called a prune node, which only stores like 5 to 10 gigabytes. So what it'll do is it'll download from the original block, but then as it moves forward, it'll erase old blocks. It moves forward and erases old blocks, moves forward and erases old blocks. So that you only have like the last week of transactions or the last month of transactions. So you don't have the entire blockchain sitting on your computer, which many people find a pain. But it's still a full node. Even if it's pruned, it's still considered a full authentic node. There's no penalty for running a prune node, and it saves space on your hard drive. And people who don't have huge amounts of space like to do that, because the blockchain is like 730 gigabytes right now, and most people don't have more than a terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes. So you can prune it. That's basically it. Node in a box, as Amy said, is a lot easier, and there are a number of manufacturers that sell these things. I run a Start9 Server 1. It's probably the most expensive and the most popular of the nodes in a box. Amy runs an Umbrel.
I don't think I paid that much for it either.
Well, the new ones, I just checked the website. This is what the new ones cost.
Wow, that is expensive.
There's also something called a MyNode, and there's one in Europe called the Nodl one. And basically, these are just home servers. And one of the things they allow you to do is to run a Bitcoin node. They also allow you to run your own search engine. They allow you to run your own Lightning node. They allow you to run your own large language model, your own ChatGPT. They allow you to run a password manager. They allow you to do a lot of things instead of relying on Google or other third-party software providers. And a lot of people want to move away from putting all of their trust into Google or into Microsoft and managing their passwords, managing their data, managing their documents, managing their photos, knowing their search history and all these things. So not only just running a node, these boxes allow you to do all sorts of sovereign computing applications. And we're getting away from data in the cloud. We're getting away from Apple, Google, Facebook, Microsoft. We're getting away from all these providers. And we start to do things on our own. Just like running a node on our own, becoming our own bank. We could start to become our own ChatGPT. We could start to become our own search engine. We could start to be our own file server. We could start to be our own password manager, and we don't have to rely on anybody else. But anyway, it's really easy to use to set up a node. Like this is a screenshot of the Start9 marketplace, which is just a place where you can download and install applications. And all you do is just double click on an icon and boom, the node starts to get installed. It's that simple. It's really, really simple. So these nodes in a box are becoming increasingly popular. One, because people don't want to have to, fiddle around with software. And two, they don't want the Bitcoin software running on their personal computer that they're working on or they're using on a daily basis. They want to have a separate machine. They don't want to have to touch it. They might be confused and think that Bitcoin is endangering their privacy or their safety, or hackers are going to come for my Bitcoin node or whatever. They want to have it separate from whatever the reason. People like to have these nodes in a box, and they're very convenient. You just plug the power in, you plug your Ethernet connection in, boom, and you're up and running. And you have to do a little setup in the beginning to connect it to your local network, but it's really not hard, and the instructions are super easy. These things are designed for average computer users. They're not for geeks and nerds and all that. Anything you want to add to that, Amy?
I mean, another advantage that I like is that it just runs all the time. And if I, go on a trip and take my laptop with me or something,
That's a great point.
then it's still running.
Yeah, to have your node be most effective and valuable to the Bitcoin network, it should be running 24/7, 365, right? So it's nice to have a dedicated machine that's just plugged into the wall and you never turn it off, and it's always available to the other nodes on the network, and it's always available. And like you say, when you go on a trip, I want to shut down my main computer, or I want to take my laptop with me. I don't have to worry about, oh, my node is offline now, nothing like that. So they're making it easier and easier, and I think it's a great movement to democratize or to further decentralize the network. Yeah. So let's get into more of the power of nodes and how it really shapes Bitcoin. So like I said, nodes dictate the rules to miners. Nodes are really what's in charge of the network, and the more nodes there are, the more powerful the network comes. And miners must create blocks that nodes will accept. Otherwise, they get rejected and they don't get paid in Bitcoin for their work. And this relationship was proven out in what was known as the block size wars, which we've talked, I think, informally about several times. This was a battle in 2017 when a bunch of miners, large corporations, venture capitalists wanted to have bigger blocks to accommodate more transactions in every block so that Bitcoin could start competing with Visa and PayPal and Venmo and these other transaction providers. And so in order to do that, they wanted to have 4 megabyte and 8 megabyte blocks instead of 1 megabyte blocks. And of course, when you get bigger blocks, then all of a sudden you got bigger blockchains. And when you get bigger blockchains, node runners got to have more memory. They got to have more expensive equipment. And then it becomes more expensive, and then fewer and fewer people can afford to run a node. So many of us objected to these bigger blocks that the big companies wanted to have. And these big companies thought that because they are financially very well-to-do and had a lot of power in the industry and they had a lot of pull, and they thought they could just change the rules of Bitcoin. Well, us average Bitcoiners said, no, you don't run the network, miners and exchanges and hardware providers and other people who are in the industry of Bitcoin. No, it's the average people who decide the rules. So we force them to keep the 1 megabyte size in order to keep nodes manageable. And that proved that miners do not run the network. And for a long time, that was the idea, was that, oh, miners really control Bitcoin. Well, this proved that no, miners do not control Bitcoin. Miners work at the pleasure of node runners. They work for us. And that was proven in 2017. I'm going to get back to this. So what happened is that the details of it is that we node runners threatened a soft fork of the Bitcoin protocol. We threatened to kind of go our own way. And if the big blockers wanted to go their own way, they would start their own chain and we wouldn't accept them. So that's really what happened, is that we said we are going to keep the rules as they are, and we want to implement this change actually called SegWit, which then led to the Lightning Network and also solidified 1 megabyte blocks with some flexibility for some more data if certain parts of the block were used. But anyway, it preserved decentralization, and we threatened to do a user-activated soft fork. In other words, to fork the network, change the rules, and leave the miners behind if they didn't go along. That threat caused the miners to capitulate and to accept our demands as node runners. So whenever the consensus rules of Bitcoin change, this is known as a fork of the network. And there are 2 types of forks when we talk about software forks, changing the consensus rules. We have hard forks, which are when we're loosening the rules, we're making the rules less strict. And this is the hard fork. And it's very disruptive because all the old nodes will not recognize the new protocol, will not recognize the new rules, and that's a hard fork. And that's how we got Bcash. And that's how we got Bitcoin's Satoshi vision, because they wanted big blocks. So the big blockers said, no, we are forking off, creating a softer creating a hard fork with less strict rules. The less strict rule being we want 4 megabyte blocks or 8 megabyte blocks. They're loosening the rules. It's a hard fork. So language-wise, it's confusing. Softer rules, harder fork, right? It's kind of confusing. But that's the way it is. Yeah, and the soft fork is when the rules are tightened. And we still accept all the previous blocks, but we're just tightening the rules, so we're rejecting. Like, we're going to say, actually, we're going to change our protocol from just red gummy bears. We're going to change it. We're actually going to explicitly say no yellow gummy bears. We're going to say no yellow gummy bears, no green gummy bears. No, we're going to explicitly say that.
And there's no yellow gummy bears in the chain anyway, so
Right.
if we say no yellow gummy bears going forward, none of the previous stuff is gonna be impacted. We just said going forward,
Right.
we're gonna also not only check to make sure it's not, green gummy bears, we're gonna specifically check for yellow gummy bears.
So why are people doing this? They're trying to create like a duplicity of the original line?
So we're going to get to this. So imagine someone says, okay, I'm going to follow your rules, and I'm going to put only red gummy bears in there. But I'm going to have red gummy bears with a top hat. And someone else says, no, I'm going to put red gummy bears with a baseball cap. No, I'm going to put red gummy bears in there with a gas mask on. And the people who originally built the chain are saying, no. Bears don't wear hats. That's not proper. Bears don't wear hats. That's not a bear. And then the people who want to put the hats on the bears say, well, you're violating my free expression. You're censoring my transactions.
Yeah.
And then the people on the original chain said, we're not violating anything. You're bending the rules. You're violating the original intent, because the original intent of our chain was just to have red gummy bears. Now you're saying, oh, you want to put like
mustaches on.
exactly. You want to you want to put a raccoon in there, and you're calling it a bear.
You got one with diapers on.
Yeah, exactly.
You got
How
like
do we
one with,
keep it clean?
You want to keep it clean, exactly. We want to keep the original intent of this red gummy bear chain.
this is getting silly, but
It's a good example, Andy. I like it. So, yeah. So in a soft fork tightens the rules. So originally the protocol said just red gummy bears, but then people came by and said, no, we're going to put red gummy bears with like belts on them, or
And not
red.
only that, but if it gets worse, and you might want to edit this part out, but we want to have red gummy bears in there doing other things with other red gummy bears that like are really not that
Of a sexual nature.
Yeah, you
Of
wouldn't
a
want to
sexual
show
nature.
anybody that.
Right.
And it's like, okay, but now that's in the blockchain forever, and that could cause us problems going forward if the government said, why do you have these
Mhm.
activities?
Or-
Okay,
and
We
some-
filled out those people coming in.
Well, you can't weed those people out, because Bitcoin is an open protocol. Anyone in the world can run Bitcoin. Anyone in the world can buy and
If they
hold
follow
Bitcoin
the rule.
if they follow the rules.
Unfortunately, the rules are not tight enough
They're not
right
tight
now
enough,
that
exactly.
we did, there was,
That's something for.
because of the way the software was designed, and some openings that were created by some of the changes that we thought were only good, people were then able to go in there and start putting the diapers on the gummy bears, and start putting the glasses on there, and start putting them in little positions and all these kind of things.
Right.
And we're like, that's not what we intended.
Not a game.
And it's not a game, and so now we need to do something a little more.
We need to tighten the
We
rules.
need to tighten the rules.
We need to tighten the definition of a red gummy bear.
Because we have bad actors that are abusing the chain for
That's
their
right.
own purposes. They're like doing all this stuff, and then they're under the table. They're like selling these things because they supposedly look cool or something. Oh, buy this hat because this is the gummy bear that has in this position where you can see its butt or something.
Right.
Excuse me?
Okay, so here we go. The current war is the spam war. So there are loopholes in the current Bitcoin protocol that allow people to put images into transactions, into the blocks, permanently store them in the blockchain, permanently store them in our nodes. There's a loophole in the SegWit. There's a loophole in the Taproot, particularly from 2023. Taproot itself was a soft fork designed to give us improvements. All it really did was open up this world of images that are now stored on our nodes. And these examples of images are actually probably the most benign examples of inscriptions that are in the blockchain. There are a lot worse things that I could show you, which I won't, of course. But these images, whether you consider them art or not, you must store them on your node forever now. You have no choice because they are in the blocks. They're in the blockchain. We can't go back and change anything about previous blocks that are in the blockchain. It's immutable. We can't change the blocks that have been written into the blockchain. So there's nothing we can do about this spam that is in the blockchain from the past. However, moving forward, we can start to filter it out. Okay. And one way that we can do this is we can not put these transactions into our mempool on our node. So that way we don't pass them on to other nodes. We're going to say, no, we don't want these to go into a block.
You kind of filter them.
We're going to filter them out before they even get into the blocks.
We're not going to send them forward, yeah.
Okay, so currently 23% of all the nodes in the world are doing this filtering. But it's not enough really to keep them out of blocks. It slows down their propagation, it discourages it, but it really doesn't prevent it. So for a couple of years now, I've been running knots, but it really hasn't been good enough. And the result is that now about 40% of all Bitcoin transactions today are spam. About 40% of all transactions are spam. They don't have anything to do with Donna sending a Bitcoin to Amy, Amy sending a Bitcoin to Milo, nothing like that. It's just for the purpose of some company, some person selling images that then have to be stored on everyone's nodes. They're taking advantage of a free resource, so they think, which is the storage space on our computers. They're not paying us. And we never agreed to store other people's non-monetary data. We agreed to store other people's transactional data, records of who sent Bitcoin to whom, but we never agreed to store images that other people want to put on there and then make money off of, right? That's like a violation of our personal property, in my opinion.
And you would think this would not be controversial, right?
No.
To add these filters to stop
All the
this?
filters?
Well, wait till you hear
That
more.
adds work. If I was to run a node, it's my responsibility to clean it up, keep it clean.
Well,
filter it.
yeah, it's your choice to filter it. Yeah, it becomes your option to filter it. But the problem is,
Obligation.
you can filter it out, but you can't filter it out of the block once it's in a block. The only way we can filter it out is if we change the consensus rules to say no more red gummy bears with hats or diapers or ice skates or anything like that. We have to really define what is valid for our blockchain. We have to tighten the rules. We have to create a soft fork. Okay? But all of these people and companies that have been making money and trying to build an industry off of these loopholes in the Bitcoin protocol are objecting. And they are accusing those of us who want to keep Bitcoin spam free. They're saying, you are censoring my personal artistic expression.
And here's the really bad part. All of those people infiltrated the Bitcoin Core developer community, the people that actually run the main Bitcoin Core software that we were talking about, how you would copy it, put it on your node and all that. The most popular, most run version of that was Bitcoin Core. It's the one that was developed by Satoshi and
Right.
continued all along.
So-
well, something happened to those people, and they're the ones that want that spam, and now it's like the grassroots effort
What do you
for
mean
small
something
people.
happened to those people?
Well, something happened to them that they suddenly
We are
started wanting to support
piecing
that
the
spam.
puzzle pieces together as to what happened to these core developers, the core maintainers. And core is simply a organization of people that maintain and develop the Bitcoin software. So when I said earlier that 23% of nodes are knots, they're running the knot software, well, the other 77% are running Bitcoin Core software. You see? And so Bitcoin Core changed one of the protocol rules in October of 2025,
Just last October.
just last October.
Never you spoke of that.
And there was a place to put some arbitrary data, and it's been around for 10 years. A place just to put a little messages.
Like you put a memo in your checkbook.
Little-
or
like-
something,
exactly.
you know, like a real small little.
Just like a memo on your check, a little place to put a little note. It was only 82 bytes large, which is not a large amount of data. And we've been having this space for people to put data in transactions. For 10 years, we've had this space. And then just last October, Bitcoin Core, in their version of the software, changed it from 82 bytes to 100,000 bytes.
You put a whole video in there.
You can put detailed images in there now, okay? And this was done against the objection of the majority of node runners. This was done against the objection of the majority of the core developers, actually.
And they rammed it through.
And they rammed it through anyway.
Concerning.
It's very concerning.
It's very concerning. And now it comes out that one of the 5 maintainers, there's only 5 people who have access to the software repository of this core Bitcoin software. One of them had a relationship with the funder of the Bitcoin core developers. She was a recent graduate of Berkeley, really didn't care about the values of sound money or Bitcoin, was really not really interested in working in Bitcoin, was thinking of getting a job at Facebook or Google in Palo Alto, but was convinced because she could do cool stuff on Bitcoin, like develop stuff on Bitcoin, like inscriptions and images and other fun stuff, and didn't really care at all about preserving Bitcoin as money.
Consequences.
It may have been more nefarious than that. We don't really know.
And it's just coming out more and more also that, I mean, it could go back to Jeffrey Epstein, it can go back to the deep state. We've always known there are 2 ways to corrupt and destroy Bitcoin. One is through centralization. The other is through the corruption of the main software. And we have basically seen a corruption of the main software implementation of the Bitcoin network. And so the response of ordinary node runners like myself and Amy is that we want to create a software. We want to tighten the rules of Bitcoin that would eliminate about 99% of the spam that is going into the blockchain right now, as we speak. About 99%. And we're not saying it's going to completely solve the spam problem. Just like when you have an email account, do you get rid of 100% of spam? No, but about like 95 to 99% of spam is gone. Certainly helps. And it's certainly better than having no spam filter. So that's what we're proposing, is to get rid of 99% of the spam. And this is called Bitcoin Improvement Proposal 110. And you can run versions of NOTs, and you can run versions of Bitcoin Core with BIP 110 activated. Currently, about 7% of all nodes are running BIP 110, and we're getting about 1,000 new nodes a month.
How do you advertise something like that needs to be added to your...
Bitcoin is generally, the Bitcoin community generally lives on Twitter. And so we argue and debate and talk about it because most people who run a Bitcoin node are on Twitter. BIP 110 will activate if 51% or 55%, I think, 55% of the miners signal that they're supporting BIP 110. But miners are not incentivized to implement BIP 110 because it'll slightly decrease their mining revenues. Decrease it by about 0.5% is the estimate. They'll lose about 0.5% of revenues. And like any business, you don't want to lose any revenues. So there's no incentive for them to do that. However, if by September 1st, we don't have the voluntary miner adoption of it, us nodes will then start rejecting blocks that contain spam.
We'll turn it on and make it functional.
We will make it functional. Right now, we're just saying,
Yeah.
this is where we're going, people. If you don't change, if you don't start rejecting these blocks also by September 1st, us nodes are going to reject them. And then it becomes a case of a Mexican standoff. Who blinks
This is where
first?
it gets interesting.
This is where there's really no precedent in Bitcoin yet.
There is kind of
there is a
war.
precedent from the block size wars. It's a slightly different case, but it's the same thing because miners work for the nodes. And if enough nodes threaten to block the miners, will the miners really say, am I really going to risk 0.5% of my revenue to have an orphan block, to mine a block and then it gets rejected? Is it worth me risking $50,000 losing a fresh block? It's probably safer as a business practice. If you're a business person, just to say, I'll let go of the 0.5% just to be safe that I don't lose any big revenue, right? That's the game theory behind this.
Yeah, and at the same time,
it
they're
should
saving the integrity of the original.
Yeah,
They don't care. They're mercenaries. Miners are mercenaries. They're business people. I just want to make money. Just make money. Milo G.
Why doesn't BIP 110 eliminate 100% of spam instead of 99% of it?
I don't know, but there's been simulators run of like all back testing previous like 100,000 blocks, and they discovered that like only like 10 transactions out of a million were not filtered out. In other words, it didn't catch everything. And that's exactly what happened in 2014. Vitalik Buterin was originally a Bitcoiner, and he wanted to use the op return field to do programmable Bitcoin. He wanted to expand the op return field to have a place to do programming on Bitcoin. At that time, Bitcoin Core said, no, Bitcoin is money. It's not a world computer. It's not a Turing complete system. Vitalik said, fine, I will go and start my own Turing complete world computer called Ethereum. That's where Ethereum got its birth. It's because he was rejected by the Bitcoin developers in 2014. Now the Bitcoin developers, core developers, are blown up that op return and basically rolled out the red carpet for scammers, for spammers, for ordinals, for runes, for dApps on Bitcoin. Basically all the things that these shitcoins are doing, they want to bring it into Bitcoin now. And so we're just saying no.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is for money only. And if we don't take a stand now, Bitcoin will become just like Ethereum. It'll just become a worthless coin. And so we have millennials wanting to program something cool, and they're complaining that they can't do it on Bitcoin. And they're crying that they can't create their cool app on Bitcoin. And they don't understand the value of sound money. That's really what this comes down to. And so they're crying censorship, and they're saying, well, if we paid the fee, we can do whatever we want with a Bitcoin transaction. Don't censor us. But censorship resistance doesn't mean you can do whatever you want. There are limits to things, like, right? You cannot go into a swimming pool and pee in the swimming pool, even if you paid the fee to get into the swimming pool. So this is the plea to run your own node, because it secures the Bitcoin network. The Bitcoin network doesn't run by itself. It runs by people who value Bitcoin's properties, sound money, 21 million hard cap, a halving issuance every 4 years, a disinflationary monetary schedule that makes it more and more scarce year after year. It is censorship resistance. It's permissionless money. Anyone, anywhere in the world can participate and send money around the world. It's rules without a ruler. It is decentralized government, something that the world has never seen before. But it all requires people running nodes. It's not magic. People's intentions of what Bitcoin is what Bitcoin will be. If people want Bitcoin to be a decentralized world computer for decentralized apps and, wizard JPEGs, that's what Bitcoin will be. If enough people say, no, Bitcoin is our best chance at a digital sound money revolution, that's what it's going to be. So what is going to support the new monetary system? It's something that's incorruptible, something that's not controllable by any government or any military.
Yeah.
It's something that everyone can trust. That's Bitcoin. That's why Howard Lutnick, the Secretary of the Treasury, is in the cabinet. That's why Bessent, former partner of George Soros, is the Secretary of the Treasury. And these people are Bitcoiners because they understand the value of incorruptible sound money. And I get it. They understand the value, and they want the US dollar and the US government and the country to be backed by Bitcoin. That's why they're acquiring Bitcoin and why they want to acquire Bitcoin. Now, the people who want to dethrone Bitcoin are the people who want to continue enslaving us. People who want to continue enslaving us are advocating for a central bank digital currency, because they can see exactly what we're spending our money on or not spending our money on, and they can turn our money off at any time. That's perfect totalitarian control if you have that. Bitcoin is the kryptonite to that totalitarian system. Those forces, I believe, are behind the core developers who have corrupted Bitcoin for the moment.
So you don't think they're going to start off making a yellow gummy bear and trying to break the chain of...
They can make their own yellow gummy bear chain, just like Bcash did. And we'll continue to run our red gummy bear chain called Bitcoin. They can go do whatever they want. But it's when they start to twist and find loopholes in our red gummy bear chain. Oh, it's a red gummy bear. with a hat. It's a red gummy bear with a diaper. Oh shit, we've got to change the rules now to tighten it up, to really, to get this junk out of
Rely
it.
on this for sure.
Well, it's really hard too, because unless you understand what it is that you value in Bitcoin and why you value it, there are a lot of voices that are targeting you and trying to change your opinion on it. Say, but you're being closed-minded. You're being closed-minded because if you don't like this different color, different blah blah whatever, you're being closed-minded. You're closing down free speech. You're censoring. And they use all of these arguments with you. It's kind of like the same things, like you're racist. You're not. You're bigoted. And you have to kind of do some soul searching, because a lot of even OG Bitcoiners have gotten swayed and gone back and forth in what they support, because at first they're like, well, I don't like the spam either, and then like, oh, I support Bit 110, and then the next day you hear them say, I made a mistake when I supported Bit 110 too soon because I didn't really understand, and now I understand, and I think we should be careful about censoring. So you the next thing you know, if you're not like totally solid in what you're understanding, your beliefs, where you want to go, it's hard for you to maintain your position. It's hard for you to go to all the trouble to uninstall core and install knots, and you take a lot. People call you names on Twitter because you're supporting NATO. You're a stupid Nazi. You're a baby. You don't know how to understand anything. You're just stupid.
You're not technical enough
You're
to
not
understand.
technical.
Yeah.
And you start questioning yourself. You're like, am I really on the wrong side of this argument?
Be firm in your convictions.
Yeah, and you have you go back, and of course you go back and you study, and it's like, am I misunderstanding something? I look at it again, and like, no, I think Bitcoin really should be for sound money, and I think if we open up this kind of spam, people could put pornographic stuff in there that's really bad, and that could open us up to problems with governments and stuff, and we don't, and also it's like,
It's just unethical.
it's unethical, and now it's like there's so much more stuff on the blockchain that I have to store on my node that's taking up my memory space, my hard drive, all that.
It's kind of like the government lobbyists in the Bitcoin industry.
Yeah, it's like that with a lot.
Factory,
It's like that with a lot of things in life right now. You really have to think, and you have to. When people call you stupid and dumb, and why are you supporting this person or that candidate or blah blah, you have to step back and think. Let me get back to my core values. What it is that I believe in. What am I trying to do? What is this thing? Do I think it's worth protecting? So it's not easy. It's a very troubling time in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin is not immune to that.
No, and all of these arguments, are all of these positive arguments like free speech, free expression. Of course, everyone's for free expression, free speech, and they use that against you. And you have to really understand what's going on at a deeper level. You just can't react on the surface of these arguments. You have to really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, right? So it's like if you have a house and someone spray paints graffiti on your house, you're going to stop them. And the graffiti artist says, well, you're obstructing my free speech, you're censoring me. Well, that's absurd. It's my house. You can't damage my property. That's exactly what's going on to node runners right now. You have these people coming in there defacing their private property without their permission, and we're stopping them. And then we get these other people saying, no, you're not for free speech, you're censoring it. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a subversion. It's a Marxist subversion of something that was good into something that's really evil. That's the way I see it.
Were you